Here is a full breakdown of how much it costs to sell your home. One of the first things that you need to consider when selling your home is the cost of preparing your home to sell. That might look like things like decluttering the home or maybe professionally cleaning the home. Maybe you want to do some minor, not renovations, but some minor changes to the home. A paint job is the one that we always talk about on this channel. It just goes a very long way. Maybe changing flooring if the flooring is outdated or if the light fixtures are outdated. These kinds of things should definitely be changed and really help out a lot with the value of the home. And they also help out a lot with getting the most amount of eyes on the home or eyes on the listing. You want the most amount of people to see the home. And these kinds of improvements are the things that go a long way when selling your home. In many places across the US, we're still kind of in a seller's market. That is, that there are less sellers than there are buyers. So things like a kitchen remodel, $50,000, definitely not necessary. A $20,000 or $30,000 bathroom remodel, again, not necessary. These prices come from where I live in Metro Atlanta. So they might be different where you live, but again, in general, in a seller's market, you don't have to make those kinds of major renovations in order to sell your home because there just isn't as much competition. If there was more seller competition, if there were more listings for sale, then yeah, you might need to do some major renovations in order to get the home sale ready. But in this market, all you really need is some great cleaning, decluttering, some modernizing of the home to make it magazine beautiful ready. What's up? My name is Victor and I'm a local realtor here in Metro Atlanta, and I put out videos every week about getting your home ready to sell and how to sell your home fast and for the most amount of money. If you're considering selling your home with a listing agent or you're considering doing it on your own, first sale by owner, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. All of my contact information is below. Thank you so much to everybody who has reached out. Even if you just have a question about what it's like to sell your home, I'm more than happy to help. The next cost associated with selling your home is going to maybe be a pre-inspection. A buyer, when they come to buy your home, is definitely going to have an inspection, and whatever that inspection comes up with, they will probably be asking you to repair those things. But if you do an inspection before you list the home, it's very possible that you can get ahead of those things and maybe take care of some of those things, or at least you would know what's going to come up on an inspection to give you a kind of an advantage when it comes to the negotiating. An inspection is typically about $400 to $600 depending on what part of the country you're in. So that pre-selling inspection could definitely help out a lot with the negotiating process. Another cost associated with selling your home is capital gains tax. This gets a lot of people surprised and gets a lot of people off guard. Like if you bought a home, 20, 30, 40 years ago for $100,000 and you're now selling that home for 8 or 900,000, any amount really, you could be liable for a pretty hefty tax bill when it comes to capital gains tax. In most parts of the country, the exemption for capital gains tax is $250,000. So if you are profiting $250,000 or less, then you're not required to pay taxes on that 250. And this is if you're single. If you're married, filing jointly, that exemption is 500,000. So again, we're talking about the profit that you would make from the sale of your home. So if you purchased a home years ago or decades ago for 100,000 and you are married, filing jointly, and selling the home today for 600,000, that's a profit of 500,000, and you would probably not have to pay capital gains tax. Now, I'm not a CPA. I don't do taxes. In fact, I hate doing taxes, but you should definitely reach out to your accountant or your CPA or whoever does your taxes to confirm. But this is generally the rule of thumb here in the US. $500,000 tax exemption, married, filing jointly. The other part of this exemption is that you have to have lived in the home for 2 out of the last 5 years before selling the home. So if this is a straight investment property and you never lived in the home, then you would probably have to pay some of that capital gains tax. And if you have only lived in the home for 1 year and you've only owned the home for 1 year, then you would have to pay capital gains tax. So there is definitely a lot to consider there, and talking to a CPA is super important. In fact, another part of that is that even if you bought the home for $100,000, but you made improvements to the home, if you did $50,000 worth of home renovations, then your base price or your base cost is down to $50,000. So certainly a lot of numbers involved there, but keep in mind that capital gains tax for many people is one of the costs associated with selling. Another cost is obviously that you're going to have to pay off your mortgage. So if you have a loan on the home, that loan is going to be the first thing that the closing attorney pays off before they give you your proceeds for the home. So obviously, if your home is worth $500,000 and you still owe $200,000, the closing attorney will pay the mortgage company before they give you your proceeds. During the contract period, the closing attorney will collect the information on your loan so that they can make sure to pay off any loans associated with that property. So that's certainly one of the costs associated. And again, if you owe 200K, you would really only be netting 300K. Another cost is taxes and maybe HOA. So these are prorated to the day. If you've already paid your taxes for the year that you're selling your home, you would be getting a refund from the buyer or from the lender. Or if you have not paid your taxes for the year that you're selling the home, again, these are property taxes, then you would be required to pay those property taxes at the closing table. Prorated. Same for the HOA. If the HOA collects one time per year, then you'll have to pay those to the HOA at the day of closing. It could even be to the month. If the HOA collects the payments monthly and you're selling anytime in the month, you're going to have to either pay that HOA fee at closing, or you're going to receive a refund if you've already paid it for that month. When it comes to the closing attorney, there really isn't a whole lot that the seller pays for when it comes to closing attorney fees. They sometimes maybe have a minimal charge for like recording the deed or transferring the deed, or, some kind of transaction fee that they come up with to collect $100 or $200. And again, this is going to be different in different parts of the US. Maybe that minimal fee is $500 where you live, but there isn't a big recording tax or a transfer tax, but there typically isn't anything major associated with the closing attorney for the seller. Now, this is if the seller is not paying closing costs. In many places today, the sellers don't pay for the buyer's closing costs. However, if you have negotiated that the seller will be paying for those closing costs, then that is definitely going to be part of the costs associated with selling your home. Which brings up a great point that these costs associated with closing, lender fees, closing attorney fees, are all negotiable. And in many places, the seller does not pay for these fees, but it absolutely is something that the buyer could ask the seller to pay for. Typically, what we see is that if a seller goes under contract and the home has not been on the market for very long, then they usually don't pay for the closing costs. But if that home has been on the market for a long time, more than what is average in your area, then it could be that you end up paying for the buyer's closing costs. This is a common thing that buyers request when a home has been on the market for a long time. Another big cost associated with selling your home is going to be marketing the home. Things like photography or videography, online advertising, maybe signs that you put outside in the yard. Another big one is that you want to have a way where you can kind of coordinate showings. It may be in your area that you're going to have lots of showings, and you want to make sure that you have appointments set for all of those people who are coming to see the home, or a way to approve those showings. And so you have to have maybe some kind of system in place to accommodate all of those showings. If you're sending out mail pieces to all of the neighborhood or the area that you are selling your home, that would obviously be a cost associated with marketing. Or if you are doing an open house and you have something, to bring people to the home, whatever that might be, would another cost associated with marketing. In any case, all of these costs associated with selling your home can easily be recorded on a seller's net sheet. And this is something that many realtors use To help kind of simplify this process or break this process down for sellers, we just have a sheet that has all of the costs associated, the amount that the home could potentially make or sell for. And so we use all of those numbers and we kind of calculate how much the seller is going to net at the end of the day when we close. In fact, if you'd like to go over a seller's net sheet with me, I'd be happy to review one of those with you. Feel free to contact me anytime. We can kind of break it down and talk about how much you could expect to net with the sale of your home. Another major cost of selling your home is going to be realtor commissions. Back in the 90s, when realtors really only represented one party in the transaction, buyers and sellers both had one realtor, and it was the same realtor, and the seller paid for that realtor's commission. And that used to be something around 6 or 7%. Today, we have a realtor for the seller and a realtor for the buyer, but that commission total has stayed about the same, 6%. And half of that has gone to the listing agent and half of that has gone to the buyer's agent. And so there is really a lot of moving parts when it comes to the commission. It's very common in many places for that to even reach as far down as 5%, or for the buyer to pay their own realtor commission. So it's very possible for the seller to not have to pay the full amount. Where your home is located and the typical practice for paying commissions in your area is really the biggest factor that determines who pays the commission. In fact, there was an entire lawsuit recently with sellers suing the National Association of Realtors in a class action lawsuit about this very thing. If you want a full breakdown of what that lawsuit means for sellers and how much you should expect to pay for commissions, you can check out that video here. I'll see you in the next one.